Okay, this video is going to talk you through topic 3.3 for geography, which deals within the population unit of about the demographic transition model. So up to this point, we've learned about or we've discussed some of the major demographic indicators, meaning factors that cause populations to rise or fall, birth rate, death rate, and if you combine those two, it gives you like a percentage of growth for populations. And then if you took a country and showed where a country is at in terms of their population growth, you have a model that shows where countries fall, and it groups them into 5 stages based off of if their population is rising or falling or somewhere in between. So that's the demographic transition model. The demographic transition model takes countries and puts them into a stage based off of where they're at with their populations. Some countries are in the earlier stages, which is stage 2. Some countries are in the later stages, which is stage 5 or 4. And so in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the characteristics of each stage, meaning when you think of stage 1, what is the birth rate like? What is the death rate like? Are there any countries there? Some examples of countries. So this model really helps classify countries throughout the world based off of their population growth. So let's get into it. This kind of summarizes what I just talked about. So in stage 1, if you start off in stage 1, every country starts in stage 1, but most countries, if not all of them, have moved through stage 1. There are no countries here at this point, and the reason why is because in stage 1, which is right here, you have a very high birth rate and a very high death rate. And there are no countries in the world that have a significant amount of babies being born and at the same time have a significant amount of people dying. Okay, so this was like a pre-industrial age society, meaning this was back before the Industrial Revolution. Countries did not have exposure to modern medicine, birth control, contraception, science. And so because of that, you had really large family sizes because you needed kids to work on the farm. You needed extra hands to help get the harvests in. But at the same time, a lot of these kids were dying in childbirth from famine and from disease and from sickness because you didn't have the medicine we have today. So because we live in a modern society where medicine and science have for the most part spread throughout the world, you do not have any countries in stage 1. But at some point or another, the vast majority of the world's countries was in stage 1. We've just progressed away from that with science and technology. So again, stage 1, what you need to know, very high birth rate, very high death rate. And so because of that, the population really isn't growing. Yeah, you have a lot of kids being born, but at the same time, you have a lot of people dying from war or disease, famine. So you don't really have your population growing at all. Stage 2 is where your population really starts to grow. So in stage 2, you have populations in which the birth rate continues to stay high. You still have a lot of babies being born, but all of a sudden, your death rate starts to dramatically decrease. All of a sudden, you don't have as many kids dying in childbirth or in the early years. People are starting to live longer lives, so life expectancy starts to grow. And it varies for each country, but if you wanted to group these countries together, the reason why countries go from stage 1 to stage 2 is science, it's education, it's technology. All of a sudden, people within this country are exposed to better paying jobs. They're exposed to mechanized equipment that can do work for them on the farm. All of a sudden, you're not spending 18 to 20 hours out in the fields laboring hard days. You all of a sudden might have some machines, some rudimentary equipment that can help you do the job, so it's not as stressful. And the main thing is, it's medicine and it's nutrition. People become more aware of the need for medicine. Diseases like smallpox, polio, malaria, those are diseases that all of a sudden they find a cure or a treatment for, so people are not dying from these diseases in such great numbers. and the vast majority of Europe and North America reached stage two in like the 17 and 1800s. And we'll talk about why that is. It mentions the Industrial Revolution there. We'll talk about that in our actual class meet and what the Industrial Revolution had to do with stage two. So this is what stage two looks like. So remember, the natural increase rate is this blue line here. Okay, this is your population, or this is the rate of increase too. Here's your death rate. So you see your green line is falling dramatically, and so because of that, you have a big increase in the population because the birth rate stays high. So things to remember about stage two: really high birth rate, rapidly decreasing death rates, which leads to a big increase in your populations. In stage three, all of a sudden, your death rate continues to fall, but all of a sudden you notice that the amount of babies being born begins to decrease. And we'll talk about why that is in the meet tomorrow. I don't really want to give that away. I want to see what you guys think about it, and then we'll discuss some of the answers. But if you look at the stage three here, this is a period where now populations are starting to contract. Not very much, your population's still growing here, but if you were a government planner, somebody who studies demography, you're gonna, if your country's in stage three, you're gonna notice all of a sudden the average mother might go from having 4 or 5 kids to 2 or 3. So your population's still gonna grow. You still have kids being born, but the average family size begins to decrease. So if you want to think of something here as a way of remembering stage three, family sizes begin to shrink. All right. So your European and North American countries are either in stage three now or stage four. Like the United States would be in stage three. Their family sizes are beginning to shrink. Death rate stays low because these countries are experienced with modern medicine and education. People, for the most part, are eating healthy, have access to doctors and hospitals and sanitation. You might have been wondering about the African countries, Asian countries. Most of them are either in stage 2 or 3. I haven't talked about them too much. Most of them are either in stage 2 or 3. And so then at stage 4, this is where, if you were a government planner, somebody who studies demography, this is where you start to get concerned if you were in charge of this government's population. Because now, in stage 4, you're starting to see a rapid decrease in birth rates. So if you're a country that you looked at stage 3, average family size is like 4 to 5 kids, and now in late stage 3, it's down to like 2 or 3. In stage 4 would look like this. The average female is either having 2 kids, 1 kid, or 0. The average family size or children is like 1 to 2 tops. Death rates stay low, so you don't have to worry about a big drop in population right off the bat. But these are some troubling signs here. So stage 4 is where the amount of kids being born equals the amount of deaths in the country roughly. There's definitely some warning signs now. So your countries like Italy, Germany, Greece, France, the United Kingdom, these are either countries that are either in stage 4 now or have moved through stage 4. It says the U.S. waivers due to diversity. What that means is the U.S. is still in stage 3 right now because some mothers of cultural backgrounds are having only 1 to 2 kids, whereas other mothers of different cultural backgrounds are having 3 to 4 children. Here's an example. The average Caucasian or white female has around 1 to 2 children. That's the fertility rate for the average Caucasian white female in the United States. But if you took the average Hispanic female, they have around 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 children. That's their fertility rate. And some other minority groups might have more kids. So because of that, you have some groups of people in the United States that are having larger family sizes, 3 to 4, whereas others are having smaller family sizes. So because of that, it's keeping the United States States in stage 3 and preventing the United States from getting to stage 4 so far. We'll talk about why that is and the differences tomorrow in our group meet. And so you might be wondering, you see a question mark here, stage 5? The reason there's a question mark there is because about 15 to 20 years ago, if I was teaching this model, the demographic transition model, stage 5 wouldn't even been on this image. It wouldn't even been on this model. Geographers and demographic experts have had to introduce a stage 5 because stage 5 is negative growth. So you might remember back to when we did the doubling time exercise, I mentioned Italy has like a negative 3% rate of increase, meaning every year its population is decreasing by 3%. Italy's in stage 5. Russia is in stage 5. Greece, Spain, those are in stage 5. Those are countries that are actually losing people. The population, if you notice here, this blue line is starting to dip. And so their doubling time is actually the amount of time it's going to take for their population to be cut in half. So I don't know if I have... that'll about wrap up the video, but with stage 5, think of like your Eastern European countries, Greece, Russia, some Southern Europe countries, Italy. Stage 4 would be your France and Germany, the United Kingdom. Stage 3 would be the United States, Mexico, India. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Brazil would be another one. Many of your South American countries are in stage 3. Stage 2 would be like your Central American and African countries, countries that are experiencing a big boom in populations right now. And stage 1 would be 0 countries, because there really isn't a country in the world that still has a significant amount of babies being born and also a lot of deaths. And the reason these stages interact with one another, guys, and the reason populations rise and fall, we'll talk more about it tomorrow, but think about the role of medicine and the role of technology. As you become more experienced and more exposed to medicine, better eating habits, nutrition, your death rates fall. And then when we meet tomorrow, we'll talk about why birth rates are falling in many European and even American countries. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed the video. That's it for today. Make sure you know the 5 stages of the demographic transition model. So like if I asked you, hey, in stage 3, give me an example of a country and what's the birth rate look like, what's the death rate look like, and what's the rate of increase look like. Make sure you can tell me that. Stage 3, birth rates are starting to fall, death rates stay low, rate of increase is starting to fall. An example of a stage 3 country could be Brazil. It could be India. All right? Have a good rest of the day. Hit me up with any questions you have.